It's week 10, day 69 of my full-time chronic pain rehabilitation journey. My name's Jason, and today I'm going to share with you my resistance training survival guide. It can be very intimidating to exercise with resistance if you're already injured or afraid of getting injured, and I'm going to help alleviate the risk with my presentation today. First though, a status update. Today was the first day that I actually felt really weary of everything I've been doing so far. It's taken a lot of effort, and I just felt like it was all just too much, and the weight of it felt just overwhelming. And I don't know why that happened, but I did go to the gym, and I took my son, my 15-year-old son, with me to start helping him do some resistance training. And I ran into my brother-in-law, who's just back from rehab, and I also helped him do some resistance training. And so I was sharing with him a lot of tips and tricks and things I've learned along the way, and then it occurred to me, I've shared these with you kind of piecemeal, but I've ever really brought it all together into a guide or a list of things you can do to make your resistance training better and less risky? And the answer is not really. So today I'm going to do exactly that. I also had a second workout today that was unexpected. I went to a place called Kidtopia. It's like one of those jungle gyms for kids, and spent, I don't know, about 45 minutes to an hour running around with my daughter Eden through a bunch of, low-grade obstacle courses. It was really fun. I know there's some risk involved in that, and I may pay for it tomorrow, but I had a really good time. It was a lot of fun. All right, today's tip is related to resistance training, but not directly. It is to be present. So when I got to this Kidtopia place, I had planned to have my oldest son, well, not my oldest son, my middle son who's home. My oldest son's on a mission. So I had my middle son, Asher, I was going to have him take care of her, run through the jungle gym with her, and I was just going to sit out there and do something on my phone. And Asher just disappeared, so Eden comes wandering back out. She's like, "Where's Asher? I'm all alone." And then I'm like, okay, I felt frustration with Asher at first, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be present. Instead of just sitting on the sidelines, I'm going to get in there and go through this jungle gym with her. So I took everything out to the car, locked it up, came back in, and I just immersed myself for that entire time in running around the kid gym and feeling like a kid again. It was really quite fantastic and invigorating. I don't know how much I'm going to pay for that. Again, the verdict's out on that, but it was a really relaxing, fun time. So be present. Don't just be a spectator. Get involved. Be in the meat of whatever it is you're doing right then. Okay, on to my resistance training survival guide. The last thing you want to do when you're injured is injure yourself more. And so it's really important when you add resistance training into the mix of your rehabilitation that you are careful about how you do it and do it in an intelligent way. And I think I have done that to a large degree, but I've learned things along the way that have made me better at it, and I want to share those things with you. If I had to summarize everything that I'm going to share with you, it would be this: just be mindful. And by that I mean be present, be thoughtful, and be deliberate about everything you're doing in your rehabilitation, and that includes resistance training. Don't exclude resistance training from that mindfulness exercise. Mindfulness is more than meditation. It's about being present with whatever you're doing, and that's really important when you're doing resistance training. So, the number one tip I can share with you is the importance of supportive routines. You must warm up, you must cool down, and optionally, but I highly recommend this, doing techniques at a recovery center or with your physical therapist or someone to support what it is that you're doing when you exercise. It's not just about going to the gym and exercising. You have to support that activity by warming up, cooling down, and possibly doing some techniques to help you recover. I strongly recommend all three. I know not everyone can do the recovery routines at a recovery center or with a physical therapist, but if you have access to something like that, you should take advantage of it. I think it will make it easier for you to continue exercising and actually make greater gains than you would otherwise. The next thing is to keep records. So I use a simple spreadsheet, and each column in the spreadsheet is a different machine. And so I just keep track of how many repetitions and what weight I did. And this gives me a pretty good overall view of what I've done, what I haven't done for a long time, so it helps me to kind of figure out when I need to focus on an exercise that I've neglected for some time. But that's not really the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to, again, be mindful. know how much, for example, you did on the machine the last time you were on it, so that you don't come in fresh and go, oh, I'm going to do 40 more pounds than I did last time. That is a prescription for an injury. It's unnecessary. And you can be much more gradual in your approach, much more careful if you know what you did the last time you were on that machine. This prevents injury, and which is really important. You don't want to go to all this trouble and spend months rehabbing yourself only to either re-injure the area that you were trying to rehabilitate or create yet a new injury that you have to deal with. That can be very demoralizing and will probably stop you dead in your tracks. The next tip is to listen to your body. If something feels off, if you feel a sensation you've never felt before, if your body parts are popping, making popping noises, if you feel acute pain, these are all indications that something's wrong and you should probably just stop what you're doing. Whatever your plan was for that day, if you were going to exceed your record or you had, plans to up the weight limit and go farther than you've gone before, none of that matters. If your body tells you you're not ready for that, you're not ready for it, and something's wrong. When something's wrong, you listen to it. Just listen to it. It can also indicate not just that you're using too much weight, it can indicate that your body's in the wrong position. You just kind of have to step back and reassess what's going on here. And in many cases, you just stop working out that day or move on to something else that's unrelated to the body part that's giving you trouble, which is typically what I do. I just work around it. The next tip is how to approach a new machine, essentially a new resistance exercise. I didn't do this naturally, and I don't think many people do it naturally. Usually people just come up, they look at it, they throw, they set a certain weight, and they just grab whatever the handles are and just go to town, baby, go to town, go to town. That is a horrible way to exercise. Before you ever actually seriously exercise on a machine, be kind of like Sherlock Holmes. Be an investigator. Walk up to this thing and go, okay, how do I set the weights? What are the weight increments? Is it 5-pound increments, 10-pound increments, 15-pound increments? This is important because if you're incremental like me, you're going to want to favor machines that give you more granular control so that over time you can up the weight more slowly and more carefully, more deliberately. I also look at, can I adjust the seat? What are the options on this? What can I move around? What can I reposition so that I can get a sense of how I need to, adjust whatever it is so that my body will be in the right place when I'm doing the exercise. Usually you can lower the seat. There are usually pads that hold your knees in place for some exercises. Just adjust all that until it feels kind of right before you've even done one repetition. And then put a very low weight on. Usually you want a little bit of resistance or you can't tell what the exercise is doing. Put a little bit of weight on and then do a single repetition and kind of just feel what it feels like. Are you positioned correctly? Is it even hitting the muscle group that the machine's supposed to target? In fact, before you've done anything I just said, you should actually walk up to the machine and see what it says it's targeting. Like, what muscle group is it supposed to be targeting? If you're not feeling that muscle group working, you're doing the exercise wrong. It is also possible to look up on YouTube what these exercises are. The names vary somewhat between machines and manufacturers. You may be able to figure out what the exercise is and go watch a video on how someone does it so that you can do it properly. It also helps, you can look at the native gym goers and say, oh, how are they using this machine? And they may be using it right, they may not be using it right. So I actually favor probably the YouTube videos over just watching somebody in the gym use the machine and mimicking them. But the overall point is just pay attention, right? Walk up to the machine, figure out everything you can about it, how it works, position everything correctly, do low weights, a few repetitions. Are you even working the right muscle group? Can you feel that muscle group working? And just go with it. You can learn so much about a machine just by being mindful about what it is, how it works, how to position everything that it has to offer, and then doing the exercise correctly. That's probably a little overly verbose, but you get the basic idea. There's more to it than just walking up, setting the weight, and pumping like crazy. That's what I'm trying to say. All right. Now, once you've familiarized yourself with these machines and you're actually ready to do some kind of serious level of weightlifting, the question is, what is the ideal weight? Well, you can tell basically by how many repetitions you could do. A single repetition is when you, for example, if you're bench pressing, you push out once, push out twice. Each one of those is a repetition, so that would be 2 repetitions. If you can do 8 to 12, you're in the right weight range. And when you're starting out, I would actually say maybe even 12 to 16 is probably fine until you get your form correct and you know what you're doing, and then you can work down towards lower numbers of repetition, higher weights. But again, just work your way down gradually. Do not try to get to, you should not be doing 4 repetitions. If you can only do 4 repetitions, that means the weight's way too high for you. So again, start out somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 and work your way down with each set. Now, I haven't told you what a set is. So a set is just basically a set of repetitions. So if you do 10 repetitions, that's one set. If you do 12 repetitions the next time, that's another set. And typically you recommend doing somewhere between 3 to 4 sets per exercise. You do want to get to the point where you fatigue the muscle enough that it will grow, that you'll actually see some benefit from it, and increase your lifting capacity. That's my general rule there. All right. In terms of incrementing weights week over week, you should not be changing the amount of weight you're lifting within any given week. Usually it's between weeks that you want to increment that. So I usually say 5 pounds for things like arms at most. And then for legs, maybe 10 pounds, a 10-pound increase per week would be pretty reasonable. In some cases, you may want to go 2.5 pounds if you have that sort of granularity on the machine that you're using. But you are not going to change the weight you're lifting for any given machine during the same week. That is just not a good idea. Do it the next week. The next week you can increment everything. And because you have records, again, records are important, you know what you did before, so you know how much to add the next week that you do the exercise again. And the last tip I want to share with you is how to work out your core when you're injured. So if you have any kind of back injury, doing a core exercise, this is like crunches, working your abdominal muscles, that is going to cause you some grief because you're going to be kind of curling your spine up, right? And that can cause problems for a lot of people. So I favor what are called isometric exercises, and these are basically yoga-like poses that you can hold. You kind of tighten your core up and you just hold the position without having to do any kind of a crunch, any kind of curving of your spine. And by doing this for the last several months, I've been able to increase my core strength dramatically. Some names for these exercises would be a bridge or a plank. You can look them up online. They're pretty straightforward, and as you're starting out, again, hold these positions for 20 seconds, see how you do, and then try to go up from there. I'm now at a point where I can do a yoga plank for like 2.5 minutes, which is pretty impressive, actually, if I do say so myself. But it took me a long time to get there. So I just favor those style of core exercises over the crunching type exercises, just because, again, my back is messed up and crunches just set it off. It's not going to work for me, and I suspect it won't work for most people with back injuries, period. But you need core strength. So the thing that's going to allow you to do a lot of heavier weightlifting once you get to that point, or even doing weightlifting correctly, is having your core there. Being able to engage your core and support the exercises you're doing is a really important way to reduce the amount of pressure you're putting on your spine and other parts of your body where you don't really want to be absorbing the weight of the exercise. Fighting for your life means being mindful of how you exercise. You cannot be too present, deliberate, or thoughtful about how you work out. If you found my video helpful, please pass it along and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, keep fighting for your life.